Good evening. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight, and we want to welcome you to the Putnam Center on the campus of New England College in Henniker for this important debate between the candidates vying for the Republican nomination in the 2nd Congressional District. This is our Live Free or Die debate week. I am Chris Ryan, the host of New Hampshire Today on iHeartRadio. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our sponsor, ARP New Hampshire, our host, New England College, you in the audience, our listeners and viewers, and of course, the candidates. Here are the important ground rules for tonight. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to respond to each question, and a 30-second rebuttal will be issued at the moderator's discretion. The goal tonight is to have the candidates engage with each other and discuss their solutions to problems facing Granite Staters. In doing so, they will all respond to each panelist's question when prompted by the moderator. Coin flips prior to the debate have determined the order the questions go in and the order of the closing statements. This is an extremely important event ahead of September the 13th primary, and my goal is to make tonight all about the candidates. In doing so, I ask the audience, as Josh just mentioned, to refrain from any reaction other than when I introduce the candidates and when they conclude their remarks at the end of the debate. Going from right to left, we have businessman Robert Burns, Keene Mayor George Hansel, and activist Lily Tang Williams. And we appreciate all of your candidacies for office. I'm very excited to be joined tonight by my two panelists, Tyler Mayhew from the Eagle Times and Kyle Dobry from the New England College student newspaper, The New Englander. We begin the debate tonight as Tyler will have our first question to Lily Tang Williams on inflation.
In what ways do you believe the federal government should be fighting the sharp rise in inflation?
Well, inflation is the highest since I came to this country in 1988. When I fled communist China to come here, seek better life and live American dream. This is the highest inflation rate in the past 40 years. I feel like it's killing my American dream, my children's American dream. People cannot afford anything. And young people like you guys probably cannot afford, even rent and, also rise cost of colleges, everything. And so I think that inflation is caused by out-of-control federal spending, printing money out of thin air, and blame on other things, and never balanced budget by the Congress. If I get elected, when I get elected, I would like to mention that again. Let's balance budget. Let's have appropriation bills from the Congress. That's their job. They have failed to do their job in the past, 10 years? When was last time they balanced budget? And they even have appropriation bills. It's absolutely Congress' job to do this. But I have not seen anything they are talking about now. Our national debt right now is at $30 trillion. Everybody sitting here has $92,000 debt on their head. That's how the government in Washington have run this country and to the ground. And that's a top concern on everybody's mind. Inflation, high cost, everything. So that's why also, that's my top campaign issue.
Let's try to keep it to the minute time frame. Mayor Hansel.
Thank you. So Granite Staters are getting crushed by inflation. This isn't news to anybody, but it's hitting people at every corner. At the gas pump, at the grocery store, when you open up your electricity bills, and I'm shuddering to think what people are going to be facing when they open up their oil heating bills this winter and they have to make heartbreaking decisions about whether they can put money away for their kids' college education or pay to heat their homes. We have to cut spending. And frankly, the Biden administration and Democrats in Washington, and Custer, by the way, votes with Biden 100% of the time. There's no wiggle room there. They are once the door gets cracked open with this spending, you see what they do. They spend us into oblivion. It's hurting families here in New Hampshire. We need a conservative fighter who has been through a municipal budget, who has pushed back on spending, who has reduced debt. And we need them to go down there and fight for us down in Washington every single day. And that's what I'll do as your congressman.
Mr. Burns?
Yeah, so, I think Lily touched on this, and George obviously has some good points as well. But, ultimately, it's the printing of money that needs to stop. All of these government bailouts, whether it's bailing people out, and, these individual bailouts, like bailing out somebody because they're going to college or they have student debt, bailing somebody out because they want, federally subsidized housing. Federally subsidized energy as well. This is what has been leading to inflation. I'm sorry, we got out of control when COVID hit. I get it that the government closed down businesses and we're putting people out of business, and I feel bad for them, and the government probably should have stepped in to help, but we created a program that was a boondoggle, and we have billions of dollars that went out to companies that didn't even exist without any recourse, without any you know, without any anything behind it. Absolute fake companies, and we don't know what happened to most of this money. It needs to stop now across the board. That's the only way that we're going to wrangle in this inflation issue.
Great segue. We're going to go to Kyle now with a question on student debt with the New Englander.
Perfect. Right now, 45 million Americans have student loan debt. Most Republicans disagreed with President Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. What needs to be done to make college education more affordable in the United States?
And this question is for Mr. Burns.
Okay, stop subsidizing it, number one. Number two, not everybody needs a college degree. I'm sorry. That's just the truth of the matter. I mean, we have tech schools, and people need to get educations. And I'm sorry, at the end of the day, somebody needs to pump gas. I know plenty of people. One of my best friends tells me that I won't tell you how many millions of dollars he's doing this year because he probably wouldn't appreciate that. But I mean, he doesn't have a college degree. This idea that you need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a good job is just a lie. It's a continuous lie that we keep feeding people. We have too many people graduating from college right now that can't earn enough money to pay back that loan, okay? Loans should be given out the same way any business loan would be. Okay, if I went there and I had a business plan and then I told the loan officer, I don't expect to actually make enough money to pay back this loan, he wouldn't give me the loan. Loans need to be merit-based. If someone's going to Harvard to get a medical degree, yes, I can see giving them a loan. If somebody is going to get a transgender history education from a liberal arts school, no, they shouldn't get $100,000 to go to school.
Mayor Hansel, do you agree with that?
Thank you. We have to make sure that we're focusing on reducing the cost of college education, which this scheme from the Biden administration, it does not do that. It's potentially going to add to the cost and make higher education more expensive. That is entirely wrong. You know, I think higher education is in transition right now. We need to make sure that our companies have opportunities to get into our universities, create majors and a curriculum that are going to benefit the workforce of tomorrow. And that's the only way that we're going to reduce the cost of higher education. I foresee down the road companies sponsoring students through the higher ed process and making sure that they're going to have the skills that they need to get out. We also have to build transparency into the system. We're asking 18-year-olds to make these huge life-changing decisions at a very young age. And we need to be working on making the case to those students why they should and shouldn't make that decision, what the payback is, what kind of job they're going to get when they get out. This is a messaging thing that adults have to do. We don't have to send the message that you don't have to pay back your loans and live up to your responsibilities. It was absolutely wrong, and frankly, the Biden administration just ticked off a lot of people with this, and it's unfortunate.
Mrs. Tang Williams.
My favorite economist, Milton Friedman, said, when the government subsidizes something, you get more of it. So when the federal government get involved with student loan business, with higher education, and give free money to the college students, then guess what? We get a higher cost. Universities hire lots of expensive administrators, jack up the prices of tuitions and costs, and it's going there to party, and then expect other taxpayers to pay for it. We want a free education. It's a human rights. So, I mean, this is what the Democrats, leadership, and all the politicians have promised you. But it's wrong. When you say this inflation of the education cost is higher than the regular rate of inflation, then because of the government get involved. So I would like to say government get out of this kind of student loan business and let the market take over and promote the trade schools at the grassroots level and tie students and their investment return to their future job possibilities. And so that's what I would like to do.
Recently, the Inflation Reduction Act was signed into law, and a provision of that allows Medicare to negotiate prescription drug costs. Do you agree or disagree with that particular provision, Mayor Hansel?
Yeah, we should, when it comes to healthcare, we should be injecting conservative values into it. That means competition, that means transparency, and so I agree with that part of the provision to try and negotiate and lower the cost of prescription drugs. It's important. We have to do that across the board in healthcare, frankly, and I would love to see more transparency when it comes to the services that are being provided. Right now, healthcare is holding our country back, and it needs some reforms, for sure.
Mr. Burns.
I absolutely agree. We should be able to negotiate 100%, but we don't want to stifle innovation. I work with one company. Obviously, I work in many different fields, but pharmaceutical is one of them, and they make an absolute life-changing cystic fibrosis drug that's not offered in virtually every country, with the exception of a handful. We need to be aware of that. And we are a wealthy country, and we do subsidize the world's drugs. I get it. But we also have access to drugs that you can't get anywhere else. I have a good friend of mine, his wife just went down for, cutting-edge surgery down in Boston the other day. They're originally from Eastern Europe, and it would be something that she would never have access to in another country. And yes, I get it. Our healthcare system is broken. The drug companies are absolutely ripping us off. They're not our friends. I can tell you that as somebody who works with them. But at the same time, we have the best healthcare in the world.
Ms. Tang, do you agree that Medicare should be able to negotiate prescription drug costs as laid out in the Inflation Reduction Act?
Yes, not just Medicare should be able to negotiate that, but I also would like to adopt some kind of plan, like Rand Paul suggested, association plans. If we don't have a competition, then the price will not come down. We didn't encourage insurance, be able to purchase cross state lines and also reduce regulations. I talked to some business owners in Nashua. He's got a small business, 14 employees. He cannot afford to buy them insurance, and their employees' prices, premiums, very high. He's so frustrated, and he contacted customer's office, never got a response, and he talked to me for about 1 hour about this, and he liked my plan. So the plan is to cut the regulations, increase competition, and they get people, just like buy car insurance, cross state lines, and price transparency will also increase competition and make a direct payment, from the user to service providers and available.
This is a question kind of along those lines from our friends at ARP New Hampshire. With many older Americans relying on Medicare for critical health coverage, if elected, how would you strengthen it for future generations, in particular given the emergence of the gig economy and individuals that may be relying on it more moving forward? This question goes first to Lee Tang Williams.
Well, as I said, I think Trump one time had a plan that eventually that if we adopt more free market-oriented competition and choices, and for even Medicare users, so eventually the Medicare actually will become more and more affordable, will cost taxpayers less money. And we need to take care of our people, but by having smart, more workable, and a competitive message. Right now, the Medicare has lots of fraud and lots of scams, and our people, when they come to use these services, run into lots of bureaucratic, red tapes. And I think that the plan of, as I said, is always go back to the free market, more competition, and so you get a better quality services. When people are Medicare, it does not mean they cannot get the best quality services from the market. But if we use a smart way to reform it, then our people could do that, include all the seniors.
Mr. Burns.
First off, we need truth in pricing. So it's my understanding that someone, if they were to go, like, let's say, get a hip replacement Friday night, it could cost twice as much as one Wednesday morning. We have the technology where people can go price this stuff out. When you're talking, and it's just not Medicare, but also Medicaid, which of course many people are on, or whether you're on some other form of government-assisted health care, whether you're a government worker, VA, etc., we should be able to see truth in pricing. And then there should be a certain level, let's say, to get a hip replacement, and you'll have to pay more if you want to go on a Friday night. There's a lot of things that we can do, and that's just one thing. But there's a lot of things that we can do with technology right now to lower these healthcare prices. The other thing, too, particularly when it comes to Medicaid, not as much Medicare, everybody should have to pay a copay. There's so much abuse in the system right now. People, we had a state rep from Nashua that used an ambulance service because she wanted to get across town. Would she have done the same ambulance service if she had to pay $20? An ambulance service can cost upward of $5,000. Just doing a lot of simple, small things can help to reduce these costs and to reduce the backup in things like emergency rooms.
Mayor Hansel, repeat the question. Just Medicare, and how would you go about strengthening it, particularly given the changing dynamics of our economy?
Yeah, I'm not going to restate some of the ideas that my colleagues have given that are worth pursuing. But overall, New Hampshire's a growing state, period. And we need people who are going to go fight down in Washington and make sure that we're fulfilling our promises to the people that are relying on Medicare. And I think adopting some reforms that'll be across the whole healthcare system should benefit the Medicare system as well. But overall, this is a really important issue for New Hampshire and our population. And I promise you, I'm going to go down and fight to make sure that Medicare benefits are protected and that the people relying on them have choice and don't have to worry about their Medicare benefits being taken away.
Tyler now has a question on energy.
If elected, how would you aim to make New Hampshire and in turn the United States more energy self-sufficient?
And that goes to Mr. Burns.
Yeah, traveling wave nuclear power plants. Right now, only one company, TerraPower, is currently pursuing it. 2026, the first one's going to show up. So this is what many people have heard of as micro nuclear power plants. We need to work on regulation to allow more free market, individuals investing in this. Because obviously it is nuclear power, and I understand that it sounds scary to certain people, although it produces almost no nuclear waste and, quite frankly, uses nuclear waste in its process. The idea is that we'll be opening up, I think, about 2030, one of these a year, but we need to push that farther. We need to be opening up 2 to 4 of these a year by 2030, and that's how we become energy independent.
Mayor Hansel.
We need an all-of-the-above energy policy, and I'll tell you what we don't need. The Biden administration coming in on day one, shutting down the XL pipeline and telegraphing to an entire industry that the days of oil and gas are over. What happened? What happened when he did that? Investors across the country and around the world said, this isn't worth investing in anymore. Our president is against it. And so, a year later, our domestic supply goes down, and people end up paying more. It's wrong. The Biden administration and Ann Custer do not care about your rising energy prices here in New Hampshire. And we need a fighter down in Washington who's going to go down there and stand up to whoever is in charge and whoever is overlooking New Hampshire and our ratepayers.
Ms. Tang Williams, the question was on energy independence. How do we become more energy independent in this nation?
It's terrible to say we are the country who was energy independent just 2 years ago to there's such high prices in every energy cost. Granted, states are already paying double the price on the electricity cost. And Biden declared war on oil and gas the first day in office and shut down Keystone pipelines. We would love to get those 11,000 workers' jobs back. And also, we need to increase all energy sources production, from nuclear to oil, gas, and coal, and everything we're doing, for example, coming from Canada, can be a lot more better, cleaner through pipeline instead of baking oil from some not so friendly countries. Renewable is one source, but it's only 20% of the electricity we're using now. So we still have to explore all energy resources. We cannot let the ideology, like the left ideology of the Green New Deal, to killing people who depend on those for their energy costs and to grow our economy.
Probably the most significant issue to Republican primary voters in this race is which of you three can defeat Ann Custer. And I'm interested in hearing from each one of you why you are uniquely qualified and the best candidate to do so. We'll start with Mayor Hansel.
So there's a very big difference being an elected official, a currently elected official. I've been delivering results for the people of Keene, and that's a lot more than just rhetoric. And that's going to be really, really important. I got reelected in Keene overwhelmingly because I delivered, I fought for, and I delivered for the residents of Keene. And this is a very similar race. It's just a bigger district. Keene is in the forgotten corner of the state. They needed somebody to stand up and fight for them, make sure that they got what they needed, make sure that they were moving the ball forward on these various issues, and make sure that they had a conservative fighter there that was pushing back against this liberal agenda. I've been in the trenches doing this. And I'm the only person on this stage who can say that. And that's what the citizens of the 2nd District need. They need someone who's going to go down to Washington and wake up every single day and figure out, how am I going to fight more and harder for my constituents against this national agenda that is not keeping New Hampshire in mind.
Mr.
I
Burns.
am that fighter.
Yeah, so I'm the only person up on this stage that's won a partisan election. I'm the only person up on this stage that's gotten more than 2,500 votes. I think the most votes I received was somewhere closer to 100,000. Listen, in 2010, when I beat Chris Pappas, it's because I was a fighter, and it's because we energized the base. Right now, the base is the silent majority of Trump voters out there. We saw it. I mean, if all of the Trump voters were to come out and vote Republican, it's not about getting moderates and Democrats to come out and vote for you. It's about exciting the Republican base, and you need an unapologetic conservative who's willing to go out there and fight. And I am not scared to fight against Ann Custer. I know what's been said about in the media. I'm a bully. I'm angry. I'm mean to people. But that's what we need. We've had too many nice guys running, and it's about time that we get somebody out there that's willing to take her on and be a little mean.
Ms. Tang Williams, why are you the best candidate to take on Ann Custer?
I'm a communism survivor. If you do not want to encaster Biden, Pelosi, AOC's socialist policies, I will be the best one to debate her and defeat her because I lived it. Nobody else did on that stage. And second, I know CCP's tactics and terms infiltrate into our country. If you don't want us to become like China, I would be the best one to go to Congress and to help the Congress realize what they're doing in the world and to our country and call out their infiltrations and stop the politicians who are making deals behind people's backs. Number 3, I'm a strong woman. I think I might be even shorter than Ann Custer, but I have this spirit for liberty. I'm a fighter because I've been fighting for liberty all my life, and I will not sell our people out. And I'm for liberty, not for sale. That's my slogan.
We did 30 more seconds on this. Mayor Hansel, you heard obviously both these individuals speak about who they think is best qualified. Do you agree with Mr. Burns that you cannot have a moderate or independent leading candidate that can have success in this race? 30 seconds.
I mean, history would prove the opposite. And I'll put it this way. Granite Staters have come to expect 2 things, okay, in these elections. Over the last 10 years, Bob Burns is going to run for something and get crushed, and Ann Custer is going to walk to re-election much easier than she should have it. She is the weakest Democrat incumbent in New England. And I've been seeing her walk to re-election time and time again. We can't do it. The stakes are too high, and we have an opportunity this year to send the right Republican through the general election and down to Washington. We have to take that opportunity.
Mr. Burns.
Hey, listen, the Democrats are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to defeat me right now with attack ads for a reason, because they know I'm the strongest candidate. I mean, this whole idea that a conservative can't win, what George is trying to say is that the entire Senate, everybody in the Senate is way too conservative to run, because you can't be pro-life. You can't have an endorsement from the NRA. You can't be pro-gun. You have to march with BLM and cancel Columbus Day to get elected. I'm sorry. You're just running as Democrat light. You're never going to excite Republicans to come out and vote for you.
Mayor Hansel was invoked directly to him.
Nobody's buying that, Bob. The fact is, Democrats have spent nearly $700,000 at this point. They're probably going to hit $1 million trying to get Bob Burns through the primary because they know that he's the easiest candidate to beat. And they're afraid of me. Nobody's buying your story, Bob.
Wait a second, 700,000. Where are you getting these numbers from? The only thing close to 700,000 is a Rhino super PAC that's coming out of Utah. I don't know who's behind that one, that has spent close to 700,000. The only thing I've seen from the FEC is 100,000 in attack ads against me, 2-point-something million against Chuck Morris. So I guess he's also the weakest candidate up there as well because he's being attacked by Democrats, right? I mean, that's what you're saying.
As much as I'd like to see a fight, we'll rein this in a little bit and bring in Lily Tang Williams to close this out.
Well, there is a proof. $100,000 from Democrats in Massachusetts want to Bob Burns to win because he will lose to Custer. And there's $300,000. And there's $300,000 from Utah super PAC, somewhere called the Liberty
600,
PAC.
Lily.
And is helping George Hansel to win. And left me in the middle for the people of New Hampshire and for the grassroots, for a political outsider and who has a fighter spirit for liberty. So I hope people check me out. Let those two fight that out.
I guess we're not moving on since you're both invoked. Mayor Hansel and Ms. Burns, just want to close this out with remarks.
Close
not.
this
Mayor
topic
Hansel.
out.
No,
Yeah,
the
give
same
her
topic.
a-
If you want to pick up on what she said and continue. on.
No, I mean, I think I've said all I want to say on this, other than I'm the one that the Democrats fear the most. They've been doing this to me since I got into politics, frankly, playing dirty to try and take me out early on. So it's nothing new for me. I'm used to it. I'm ready for it. And I'm ready to take on Ann Custer in November. Thank you.
Burns.
You know what's funny about George's speech is he usually starts off with how much Democrats like him and that they've come out and voted for him and worked with him. Now they hate him. Trust me, the Democrats hate me the most. And by the way, Lily, it's 600,000 for George. I don't know where he's getting the 700 from me, but you are correct about the 100.
All right, we move on now to school safety. Kyle from the New Englander, a question on that.
All right. How can we hold up our Second Amendment right while also keeping our children safe in schools?
And that question goes to Mr. Burns.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of unique in this situation. So I went to school, I don't want to age myself, but I went to school in the early 90s, and we saw this increase of not so much gun violence, but school shootings. And I'm going to tell you what, it coincides directly with the internet. Early on, we talked about movies like The Basketball Diaries. I don't know if anybody saw that, but when Columbine happened, there was another school shooting as well where they believed that the shooters were actually mimicking what they saw in that movie. I think a lot of it's the media, the internet. I think that children are being constantly inundated with this stuff, and it's more destructive than anything else. Listen, you got to be 21 to buy cigarettes now. I'm going to tell you this right now. TikTok is more dangerous to your children, to developing brains of 10, 11, 12-year-olds than cigarettes. You can quote me on that. It's dangerous. It's divisive. The internet is absolutely inundating our children. When we talk about mental health issues, this is where these mental health issues are coming from. It's the modern media and the modern technology society that we live in today, and that's what we need to be working on, getting our children off these devices.
Ms. Tang Williams.
Well, Second Amendment rights is very dear to my heart. And I wrote an article, my first open ad ever published in this country called Guns Against Tyranny. 1.4 billion Chinese in my native country are totally disarmed. And they're under zero COVID lockdown right now, hungry for food, could not go out without permission. We need to hold on to our Second Amendment right very, very tight. Well, regarding to how to keep our students safe, as I said before, if we allow teachers volunteer to be trained and carry inside of schools, and there will be internal security for our kids and for our teachers. Guns are not dangerous. Criminals are. So that's why we need more people, good people with guns, to shoot down the bad people with guns. It's common sense. I don't know why we keep promoting gun-free zones. And those gun-free zone policies have blood on their hands. So I don't know why we cannot have a conversation about this to really effectively protect our students.
Mayor Hansel.
I think Democrats are trying to use this issue to take away people's rights. The Second Amendment is very clear. But in reality, we're taking much better care of money in banks than we are students in schools right now. That should be unacceptable to every American, no matter how you feel on the Second Amendment. And so I hope that we're going to be working hard over the next session to come up with ways. It may be grants to support our members of local law enforcement for better training. It may be updating our school facilities and other ideas. But we should all be concerned about that. We need to make sure that students are in the classroom, they're focusing on learning. And we need to make sure that parents, when they drop their kids off in the morning, are very confident that they're going to be able to pick them up safe in the afternoon. Everybody, Republicans and Democrats, needs to take that on as a challenge and not politicize this as an issue.
I think a lot of the voters would like to know a little bit more about the three of you as individuals. And a good way, obviously, to determine that is to ask who you aspire to be like, or somebody that inspires you as an individual and why. And we'll start with Mayor Hansel.
Who I aspire to be like. Well, I have to go with an easy answer. My parents inspire me every day and support me every day. And I hope that I have the opportunity to support somebody as much as they've supported me throughout my life. So thank you.
And Ms. Tang Williams.
Well, as somebody who totally grew up under oppression, under tyrannical government. I just remember this movie character and called the Patriot. He inspired me, and Patriot, like a Braveheart, somebody is willing to get his head chopped off and still yelling, screaming for freedom. That's what I say, who I am. I'm here to run for Congress, and my North Star is actually a liberty. Nothing else I cares. It's not about political office I'm running. It's about save the country I love. This country I love so much to come here, but now I see it's been destroyed by socialist, by communist policies. I'm really worried for my children's future. So I would like to be like that guy, in Patriot movie and in Braveheart to say freedom, how precious that is, and how much we need inspired to fight for it, especially our young people today on college campuses, like you guys.
The production media did not anticipate a Mel Gibson reference in the answer to this question. We'll go with Mr. Burns.
As being from Scottish descent, I always have to bring up that Braveheart is a completely made-up movie and so inaccurate, it's unbelievable.
Good movie.
But then also, like, George has to do this to me. So, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? I used to always love Bob Hope growing up. I used to love Jimmy Stewart. I was thinking about Jimmy Stewart today and how much he's inspired me in everything that I've done. Elvis Presley. But obviously, it's my father. He's my best friend. He's my business partner. Everything that he's done through his life has been amazing. He's the one who's always been there for me when a lot of people would give up on you. It's your dad.
Okay, I'm sorry. Real person was always my hero. Actually, is the founding father, George Washington. He could have become a king when he was offered the position. He declined. That's kind of founding father I hold dearly as my heroes because he would say no to the power he could have. That's my hero. He inspired me to be that kind of statesman, but not politician, especially not career politician or corrupted politician who loved power.
Tyler now with a question on election integrity.
Do you believe the 2020 election was compromised? And if so, in what ways should our voting process be fixed to ensure it doesn't happen again?
This starts with Lily Tang Williams.
Well, there were lots of irregularities during 2020 elections, even in our state. I actually was elected supervisor of checklists in my town of Ware last year. And I know there are some loopholes. And also, I know 80% of our elections in New Hampshire are still pretty good. We are a small state, but I like the things to improve. It's really a state issue. As a red state, we could improve our election law, especially same-day registration. Sometimes does cause potential harm. And I would like to say that we work together to improve this, but election integrity is very critical to our constitutional republic. If our citizens' votes don't count, there's lots of fraud, then we really have to hold on, to our Second Amendment right. I really prefer we make changes through our ballot boxes.
Mr. Burns.
Yeah, absolutely. It was compromised. Thank you for the question. It was worded a little bit differently than we usually get it, and I think we've all answered it like 10 times. What kills me is that I don't remember after the 2000 election, people asking Democrats, was the 2000 election stolen? How about the 2004 election? What about the Russian meddling of 10 grand on Facebook ads in the 2016 election? How about Georgia's gubernatorial election, which many Democrats still deny? So, thank you for not asking us if we're election deniers. We've all answered it. We're not election deniers. Obviously, there's a lot of problems with our voting. We've all seen 2,000 mules. Ballot harvesting was illegal in all of these states. It was going on. We know it's going on. These non-governmental organizations that are probably getting federal money were out there harvesting ballots completely illegal on many different levels, and we need to go after that, and we need to examine that. I mean, when a vote is stolen, it doesn't matter whether the election was stolen. When a vote is stolen, it is important and needs to be taken care of and needs to be protected.
30-second follow-up. Why is there this disconnect that occurs between, say, the mainstream media and the public as a whole in regard to whether it's ballot harvesting or whatever the topic may be?
I don't think, George didn't get to speak.
We'll get to George in a second.
Oh, sorry.
And why do you think there's the discrepancy between what the national media may think about it or what's reported on it versus what is?
Because most of the news media is fake news. They're obviously in the pocket of the Democrats. They're trying to push an agenda. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, you see it every day. It's disgusting. But what are you going to do about it? Nothing. Because everybody has the First Amendment, freedom of speech. I'm sorry for those of you out there that don't like it, but they have the right to do that. But you know what? We've got the internet, and it fights back. We've got Fox News. We've got Real America's Voice, OAN. We have Republican and conservative news outlets that we can listen to. Okay? The truth is out there.
Mayor Hansel.
So the election was certified. Joe Biden is our president, but there are a significant amount of people in this country that do not trust our government institutions. And this stems from our elections. It goes to the Justice Department. It goes to the presidency. We need a Republican majority in Congress because that is the only antidote to rebuilding, to this huge lack of trust among a significant portion of the American people. And we know that Democrats, when they're in charge, you have no chance of getting any sort of fair investigation. You know that when they can't get people to agree with their ideas, that they just jam through their agenda. We need strong Republicans down in Washington who are going to stand up for fairness, stand up for norms, stand up for transparency, and get to the bottom of this and many other areas of our society, because this is like probably the most critical thing going right now, is this lack of trust in these institutions. If we don't have universal trust in those things, we are going to have a very hard time holding this country together.
Many Republicans are hopeful for a Republican-led House of Representatives for that reason, for there being a greater amount of investigations and a look into things that may have been overlooked with a Democratic House of Representatives. Mr. Burns, what would you like to see investigated if you are elected to Congress that's been overlooked by the Democrats?
Well, most recently, I mean, the DOJ and the FBI and the investigation into Mar-a-Lago. I mean, that would be the first thing at this point. But as we talked earlier about the ballot harvesting in other states and stuff like that, and what sort of government, these non-governmental agencies are getting federal funds to break the law and get Democrats elected. I mean, I think that should be investigated as well. I mean, those would probably be two of my top primary agendas. Yeah.
Ms. Tang Williams. What would you like, if you were elected to Congress, what would you like to see investigated that's been overlooked by Democrats for the last 2 years?
Well, how about start investigating the origin of COVID? Was that from Wuhan, China? Well, Chinese virus is racist term. No, investigate. Where is that from? And what did China do? Why didn't we not go after them? Why are we still buying lots of PPE from them, from this administration? So I think that lots of investigation can be done. I would like to see what corrupted level of our federal agencies, DOJ, FBI, weaponize our federal agencies is very dangerous for our constitutional republic. That's what the Chinese Communist Party do to their political enemies. And if there's justified, then rules should apply for everybody instead of double standards and witch hunt. I'm afraid now if, IRS special agents going to come after me because I'm a Republican and speak up. I'm a mega Republican. I could be dangerous to democracy. That's just unbelievable. I'm an immigrant. I love this country. But now I'm the extremist, according to New Hampshire Democrats. They don't want me to go debate Ancaster for sure.
Mayor Hansel.
When you see politicians squirm and get upset and worried about sunshine, transparency, and investigations, that throws up red flags for me, and that's what we should be investigating. I think, obviously, the potential weaponization of some arms of government by a political party or members or elected officials is something we need to get to the bottom of because the American people are demanding it. And I would take my cues from the American people. If they want something investigated, then we should investigate it, and nobody should be afraid of that.
Now we're going to go back to Tyler with a question on immigration.
What do you believe a path to citizenship for immigrants crossing the United States-Mexican border should look like?
And that's for Mayor Hansel.
So I'm in favor of a path to legal status to make sure that people come out of the shadows, but a path to citizenship, we need to secure the border. This Biden administration's ambiguous policy has been disastrous. It's creating a crisis across our country. We have illegal drugs coming into the country that are affecting every community. I know this acutely as a mayor. We also have a humanitarian crisis at the border, and we're creating an industry for nefarious cartels down in Mexico. We need to secure the border first and foremost. I'd also like to see us bring the asylum process out to our embassies and force people to go through that process the right way. The Biden administration, right from the top, is incentivizing people to go around the system. It's unfair, it's unjust, it's creating a humanitarian crisis, and we need to stand up and make sure that we're incentivizing people to go through the right process the right way.
Mrs. Tang Williams.
I'm a legal immigrant. I wish more people would come to this country legally and achieve the American dream, contribute to our economy. This open border chaos, and my brother waited 13 years to come to this country legally and did all the right process. And then people come in from southern border, 2 hours, they're inside of a country. It just slap in the face to the people waiting in line. And we really should have a long-term immigration reforms, because when Trump trying to negotiate with Democrats to have long-term solutions for the DACA dreamers to say secure the border, $5 billion build the wall, and let's make the people like DACAs come out of shadows. And Democrats will not give him that money and play politics, and this issue is still not resolved. It's very sad when both parties just fighting each other like they're really doing something for good for our country and put Americans' people's interests first.
Mr. Burns.
No pathway to citizenship for anybody who came here illegally. That's number one. And I'm going to tell you why, because it's an attractive nuisance when you send the message to people that they can skirt around the system. When we have sanctuary cities like Keene, you send a bad message to illegal aliens. When you have these pictures of Abbott sending these busloads of illegals to New York, and they're being put up in hotels, given gift bags and everything else, it sends the wrong message. Listen, there's no doubt about it that a lot of the problems in South and Central America are caused by United States drug war, and we should definitely be more involved in taking out the cartels, the MS-13, and everything else out there. Absolutely, America has a responsibility to take care of that. But the solution is not to send all of your people from Honduras and Guatemala and Belize to the United States and put them up in hotels. I'm sorry. You don't send the message that we're going to have sanctuary cities and you're going to be protected, that you're going to get on the government dole. That is what's leading to this crisis at the southern border.
Mayor Hansel, you were invoked. Is Keene a sanctuary city?
No, we all know that Bob is just making this up as he goes along. Keene is not a sanctuary city, and here's the mayor telling you that. I am the only one on this stage who has actually been in a position to raise a police budget, which I did. I increased the police budget in Keene because I wanted to give members of law enforcement the resources they need to deliver and do their jobs. And it's more important, as I've been campaigning around this district, that supporting our law enforcement has really focused in on a critically important issue for our country, and that extends to the border, and giving the resources to our border agents to do their jobs. And both Republicans and Democrats have some blame here. We've been talking about border security since Donald Trump came in and really made it a key issue, and Republicans didn't give them the resources they needed to get the job done. We need someone who's going to go down there and fight and make sure that we finally do it.
Mr. Burns, you were invoked. Do you have any evidence to indicate that it's a sanctuary
2017,
city?
it passed as a sanctuary city. You can use Google. I mean, it's out there. It's in the public domain. Keene Sentinel article. Yes, George didn't vote for it, but he liked the sentiment of it and just wished that he had a little bit more time to examine the what is it called? The proclamation, bill? I don't know. I don't know that much about city government. I'm sorry, George. But it absolutely happened. And then on top of it, he put Eli Rivera, who's made Cheshire County a sanctuary county, on his social justice board, Black Lives Matter board. I forget what board he's on. So you can probably correct me on those.
Mayor Hansel.
Bob makes this stuff up. Democrats pay to spread it around. You've probably gotten these mailers without any disclaimer on them or anything like that. Those mailers are coming from Democrats. They're taking it out of his mouth and they're spreading it and trying to spread misinformation about this race so they can get their preferred candidate.
Do you have any evidence of that? It's interesting. I've been
Google
asked
it.
multiple times.
Google it.
All right, we're going to
Do
move
you
on.
have any evidence, though?
Move on.
All
So another question from our sponsor at ARP New Hampshire. Many Granite Staters view Social Security as a promise that must be kept. If elected, how would you protect earned Social Security benefits for the future? We start with Mr. Burns.
Yeah, okay. So, unlike one of my opponents who said that he was going to privatize Social Security, I'm not going to do that. Look at privatizing Social Security. Sorry, you didn't actually say you were going to do it. You're just looking at it. Listen, if you're in Social Security now, you're about to retire, whatever, we're not going to touch your Social Security benefits. Absolutely not. But one of the things we need to do, there's 40%, something like 40% of able-bodied workers are not working right now. They need to be working and paying into Social Security, okay? And what's going on? The 60% of able-bodied workers who are working are paying for that 40% to sit at home, play Xbox, and order McDonald's from Uber Eats. We end that. And then we can take care of this situation pretty easily.
Lily Tang Williams.
Well, that for people already paying to the system, they should get their money out. That's a fair way, and it's also, that's their retirement. Lots of people depend on it. So that's what happens when you rely on government for retirement. By the time you young kids and trying to retire, maybe Social Security will not be there for you, but you're already paying to system. It's not going to be solvent according to the numbers. Like maybe in, by 30 or something, I'm even worried about will they be there for me because I'm still too young to get that money yet. So it's better to have options, and the government does not have a lockbox. They use their money in advance, then get the future generation pay for older generations. It's just not sustainable. So we need to look at this seriously, but we will, of course, guarantee the people who are already paying to the system and get their money. So, but the young people, I think you prefer to have some options instead of relying on government. You get like what, 0.2% return or might not be there at all by the time you need it.
Mayor Hansel, I'll repeat the question. How would you protect earned Social Security benefits for the future?
I will not vote to privatize Social Security, period. This is an aging state, as I said before, and we need people who are going to fight to make sure that those who paid into the system get what they were promised, period. That is a litmus test for anything having to do with Social Security. There may be some reforms that are necessary and needed, but I'm going to be fighting for New Hampshire seniors.
Back to Tyler now with a question on foreign policy.
How do you believe, if at all, the U.S. should intervene in the conflict between China and Taiwan?
And that's, we'll start with Lily Tang Williams.
Well, under the current policy of U.S. government, one China policy, but United States will defend Taiwan. Depends on how you look at it, how to defend it. Arms sales, morally, economically, because Taiwan is never under communist rule. It was Republic of China who went to Taiwan, and when the PRC founded 1949 under communist by Mao, we absolutely need to defend Taiwan. Taiwan is a democracy, and Taiwan is one of the strongest economy in Asia, our ally. But right now, when China is bullying around the world, and we are weak from a position of weakness, we cannot even negotiate anything. And we still rely on China for supplies. So how do we hold on China to be accountable when we actually rely on them for lots of things? So that's where I can come to play. One of my home business is China expert witness. I think I can be tremendous asset to U.S. Congress.
Mr. Burns.
Yeah, so I always kind of hate this question because what you're supposed to say is everything's on the table for the defense of Taiwan, because if you say anything else, then you show weakness to the Chinese. The truth of the matter is we're going to continue to supply them with weapons, and it's not just Taiwan, but we also need to bring back that critical manufacturing like chips, the semiconductors from Taiwan, okay? Because right now we are too dependent on Taiwan and those microchips coming from there. But the way the Democrats did it was the wrong way to do it. You didn't have to give billion-dollar bailouts to multimillionaires and multi-billion-dollar companies. All you need to do was to say that critical defense manufacturing will use American chips over a certain timeline. So all of that absolutely has to come back. We have to take a strong line with China. What we do in the end, that we cross that hurdle when we actually get there. But I will say this, we're obviously going to provide those weapons and everything else to Taiwan and to other countries like the Philippines, of course, for their defense. And there's a lot of people over there that really are scared of the Chinese, and they all really need to step up and be united. And the United States can't carry all of the weight in this possible future upcoming war.
Mayor Hansel.
Let me be clear. We live in a much more dangerous world now than we did a couple years ago, and is a direct result of the Biden administration and Ann Custer right there with them and their disastrous foreign policy. The exit from Afghanistan, where we left equipment there, and it created a humanitarian crisis over there as well, and lives were lost. That created a cascade of strongmen and strong governments around the world feeling emboldened. Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine shortly after because he saw an opportunity. Now we see China intimidating Taiwan because they see an opportunity. The Biden administration has given us a terrible, terrible mess. And we need to get together with our our partners around the world who have a shared interest in global security. And we need to make the case now that we should get together and fund some of these actions to protect global security. It's a very good time because our economy right now is in tough shape. We're in a recession. We overspent during COVID and all that. It's a perfect time for us to go to our partners and get together on this.
Each election cycle, both Republicans and Democrats will make the argument they're fiscally conservative. They're going to go down to Washington, D.C., and they're going to cut spending. And each election cycle, the opposite happens. They go down and spending increases. Mr. Burns, we'll start with you. Why should we believe you that you'll actually cut spending and we won't see the deficit increase?
I mean, I've walked the walk, I've talked the talk. There's no doubt the reason that I don't have, lobbyists and special interest people throwing tens of thousands of dollars at me, like some of my opponents, is because they know that I'm not going to bring home the cash for them. And quite frankly, I don't even think that my opponent knows half the people who are giving him the money or what they're expecting out of him. But no, I'm going to end all of that. That's why I've essentially self-funded my entire campaign, because everybody out there knows they're not going to line their pockets with Bob Burns.
We'll go to Mayor Hansel in a second, but we'll stay in order for Lily Tang Williams.
Well, I'm the only one got National Tea Party Express endorsement. They call me the superior candidate who will go to Washington, cut the cost, the size, the over-intrusiveness of the federal government. I also got an endorsement from the conservative bloc called Granny Grok. After 2 hours, high-pressure grill sessions where George declined to the invitation and Bob Burns did not meet their expectations, I got an endorsement. I had lots of fun. So you can trust me, the Constitution 2-hour session to me was easy because as a foreigner born in China, I'm an American citizen by choice now. I understand our Constitution better than 2 people were born in this country and better than lots of students here born in this country. They don't even want to sometimes in public schools listen to Constitution. So I would be the best one to do that. And you can trust me. As I said, Lily, for liberty, for America, and not for sale.
Mayor Hansel.
I'm the only one on this stage that's been responsible for budget. I know what it means to have to go back and forth and push back against spending because I've done it, and I'm doing it right now. And frankly, as a freshman congressman, you're not going to go over there and go down there, flip over the table, and change the culture completely. But what we can do as freshmen, when I end up down there, is get together with other reps that are of similar mind. We have to push back on these omnibus spending bills. We have to force Congress to come up with a budget in the right way. And that may be a balanced budget amendment, where if you don't pass a balanced budget, you don't get paid. I'd love to see it. And so I've got to get together with like-minded folks down there and start the change. I know I can do it because I am doing it.
Mayor Hansel, along those lines, what would be, and this question will go for all 3 of you, what would be the first issue or piece of legislation you either would want to write or co-sponsor as a member of Congress? Mayor Hansel.
Yeah, we need a fighter to go down and protect the price stability of home heating oil. That's something that's uniquely and specifically relevant to people in New Hampshire, because a lot of places around the country, they have natural gas pipelines. They're not thinking so much about home heating oil, and we're a small state. So I'm going to go down there, and I'm going to try my best. I'm going to focus on that and rural veterans, because both of those issues are specifically important in New Hampshire, and they need someone who's going to fight every day on those 2 issues for the first 2 years.
Mr. Burns.
A big cornerstone of my campaign has been bringing back critical manufacturing to the United States. We're starting to do it with semiconductors. We did it the wrong way. But there's more that needs to be done, whether it's pharmaceuticals, whether it's food, whether it's nutraceuticals, vitamins, aspirin, all of those sorts of things. We need to be making this here now because the biggest existential threat to us right now is China. And every day that we let it go, our national security is more in jeopardy. So that's the first thing that I'm going to work on, and it's something that I have some unique experience and knowledge with.
Ms. Tang Williams, I'll repeat the question. What would be the first piece of legislation you would write or co-sponsor if you were elected to Congress?
I'm honored to get endorsement from the U.S. parents involved in education because I'm their advisory board. I have been fighting against centralized education for years, and they know me very well. I don't know if you two have children or not, as a mother of 3, and as somebody who was totally indoctrinated in communist China, I see how American parental rights are being marginalized. And the leftists are taking over our classrooms. And the Biden administration's educational department is going to have taxpayers' money to teach critical race theory, and teach gender affirmation stuff in our schools. I would be the one who co-sponsor or write a bill to abolish department education once for all. All the president promised to do it, and they failed. I would do it. It takes an outsider like me who grew up in China to do it.
Thank you. And we'll go back to Kyle now for a question on marijuana policy.
2/3 of Americans agree that marijuana should be federally legalized, and here in New Hampshire, that number is even higher. On a local, state, and federal level, the United States spends billions of dollars each year enforcing marijuana laws. In an effort to control spending, would you consider federal marijuana legalization?
That question is for Mayor Hansel.
Yeah, we should deschedule marijuana at the federal level. Here in New Hampshire, it's up to the state, obviously, but I think we should create some consistency with surrounding states. Hopefully cutting down on the commercialization of marijuana sales and maybe some of the products that might be that might fall in the wrong hands, so to speak, with small children. But right now it's creating a problem here in New Hampshire with employers, policies related to drug testing, and then just inconsistency with all of our neighbors. So I'd be in favor of descheduling marijuana at the federal level.
Mrs. Tang Williams.
You know, I lived in Colorado for many years. That was the first state to actually legalize marijuana, right? But to be honest with you, I never smoked it. I just don't like it. But the thing is, should you be criminalized if you do smoke it? And plus, you know, there are lots of states already legalize marijuana. But then you have like a Schedule 1 on federal law. They just cause lots of issues for the legal business owners in their state and for the users. So I would like to see federal government get out of the way, deschedule marijuana, and give that issue back to state. In New Hampshire, you know, I think we're trying. We're the only state now. It's not, you know, still talk about legalization, but at least we have decriminalized the marijuana. So I would like to say deschedule it. I will support it.
Mr. Burns.
Yeah, so right now, cannabinoids, are a Schedule 1 drug. And what that means to those out there that don't understand it, it means that it has no medicinal purpose and it's federally illegal on every level. There's no such thing as legalizing anything. There's no legal alcohol. It's regulated in every state and it's regulated differently. When I was a young guy, I remember you could only buy 3% beer, I think, in Utah. And there were no bars unless it was a club and you joined it. It absolutely should be descheduled or at least lowered on the schedule. States can make that decision on their own. Obviously, I've seen what's gone across the country. I've worked in pharmaceutical manufacturing as well. And we've had a lot of problems, especially when it comes to using cannabinoids in candy. The earliest state, I believe, that actually quote unquote legalized it, I believe, was Washington before Colorado. But they've actually banned all of those, like gummy bears, things like that. Candies can only come in certain levels. There probably will be a federal caveat to it through the FDA, particularly when you're talking about medicinal and candy. Four Loko drink is banned. For those of you who know what it was an extremely caffeinated alcohol drink that caused many deaths, and the FDA stepped in. So you're probably going to see something like that. Unfortunately, right now, because the federal government's unwillingness to deschedule it, it's kind of the Wild West out there, not only just with banking, but also production and regulation. And it's more problematic than it should be, and the federal government isn't helping anybody by keeping it a Schedule 1 drug.
So we've reached the point of the debate now for our closing statements. Believe it or not, we selected the order prior to the debate, and it's going to be Lily Tang Williams, followed by Bob Burns, and then George Hansel. And we'll start with Lily, 90 seconds.
Well, thank you for hosting this wonderful debate. As I mentioned it, I'm the only one who survived communism and socialism. And I'm the one who's running out of love for America, my new country. I have no place to go if I lose America. My slogan is, I fear the country I love is becoming like the country I left. I want to fight very hard for the people of New Hampshire and for my children's American dream. I'm not about being a politician. I signed a term limit. I would support and vote for term limits on all politicians in Washington. I believe the government is for the people, by the people, of the people, and should never, never sell out the people who vote you in. If you want to trust somebody who is totally not controlled by anyone, by any super PACs, by any politician and special interest, that's me, an outsider who came to this country, just want to have freedom, just want to live with prosperity, have better lives, and let the government leave me alone, but they don't. That's why I'm doing now to run for Congress, to go debate 100 members of a progressive caucus people, include ALC and Squad, and call them out and advocate for freedom and truly small, limited government. I'm humbly ask you to support me, vote for me, LilyTangWilliams.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Burns.
Or my campaign manager thinks I was third, but that's fine. So listen, I think it's what's that?
If that was the determination, then we can certainly. Josh, was that the determination? All right.
Okay.
You go.
All right. So my name's George Hansel. I'm from this district. I have a business here. I'm very proud to be the fifth generation of a family-owned local manufacturing company where we've been employing people and shipping products around the world for over 120 years. I'm so proud also to be the mayor of Keene, New Hampshire, where I live, and I love the people of this district. But I'm very concerned. We need a fighter. We need somebody who has been delivering results and has been in a position to deliver results and not just rhetoric. I am the only person on this stage who has been in that position. And it's a desperate time. It's a desperate time because I see the national policy in this country going in entirely the wrong direction. And it's going to leave us behind. It's going to leave rural places like New Hampshire behind. And we have a federal delegation, and we have Ann Custer. They're not doing anything. They're not looking out for you, and they're not looking out for me. And that's got to change. And we've got an unprecedented opportunity here with this election, this time, to finally win. Now, there are forces that are coming in trying to manipulate our primary, our Republican primary. Democrats are dumping money into this Republican primary, trying to find their preferred candidate. Don't let the Democrats win. We can't. And I know everybody out there watching agrees with me that as Republicans, we're sick of losing, and we're not going to do it this time. I'm a conservative fighter. I've been in the trenches pushing back on a liberal agenda. Trust me, send me down to Washington to deliver for you. My name's George Hansel. Go to georgehansel.com and look up more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
So this is my second to last debate with these two fine candidates, and quite frankly, I've had a lot of fun, particularly sparring back and forth with George here, and we get to do it one more time tomorrow, so I guess it'll be like our last time. It's all really wrapping up, and it is kind of emotional. I've been at this for a year, and I've had a lot of fun doing it. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I come across a little mean, I get it, and Lily, I don't hate you. But you know, we're opponents, and that's what we do. Listen, and it's no slight on either of these two, but you know, I definitely have been called the most conservative. I'm the jerk. I yell at people sometimes, and I come out a little strong. I'm proud of that. And that's the type of fighting that we need to take on Ann Custer. You know, nothing against the last candidates that we've had in this seat, but I mean, I think everybody's really gone kids' gloves when it comes to Custer, and that's not what we need. We need somebody who's really going to take her to task. You know, and we talk about this, the Democrats supposedly spending $100,000 on ads for me. 700,000 is being brought in by a Rhino super PAC from Utah. I mean, when you look at what my opponents have raised and spent, I'm the smallest guy in the race right now, but I'm getting the most results when you look at the polls. And it's because my message is resonating. It's because I've gone out there and worked the hardest. It's because I've been at this for a year. I mean, even more than that. In 2018, I ran against you, Stu. We were out there, talking about this message. I was talking about the supply chain and what needs to change in Washington. And I am talking about actually like policy. I'm not just delivering the rhetoric that I am the pro-life, the pro-Trump, the America First candidate, but I am. And I am unapologetically conservative. And this is a Republican primary. And Republicans do want a conservative there to represent their values. I realize I'm over time, sorry, but thank you. And I'd appreciate your vote, and go to my website, burnsfornh.com.
Well, I want to thank you all very much for being here. As Wayne said in the open, it is admirable for individuals to put their name on the ballot. It's a tough process. And I want to give you all a round of applause for being here tonight. I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening for our Live Free or Die 2nd Congressional District GOP debate. I hope you've learned more about the candidates. I hope you're ready to vote on September the 13th. And I hope you're ready to join us tomorrow night as we welcome the 5 Republican U.S. Senate candidates here at the Putnam Center at New England College. Thank you, everybody.